You're listening to episode number 67 of the REI Masterclass podcast. What's going on, everybody? It's Brian Trippe. I am here in beautiful Birmingham, Alabama. So glad you decided to join us today for another episode of the Masterclass podcast. We are Alabama's only real estate podcast, and we got a lot of experts locally that come on our show and talk about Birmingham, Huntsville, Montgomery real estate. But we also have some great guests all throughout the country that come on the show, just kind of give us some national perspective as well and just kind of figure out where Birmingham sits in that national stage. Very quickly, I just want to make a couple of announcements like I always do. Our REI meetings are always the second Thursday of every single month, and our next meeting is coming up this upcoming Thursday. So it's, like I said, the first Thursday of every single month. Embassy Suites Hotel, 6 p.m. is when we get started, so definitely come check that out. And then we have boot camps coming up. We do our quarterly boot camps. Our next one's coming up in June. It's actually May 31st through June the 2nd. 3 full days. You get me. We talk about wholesale. We talk about fix and flip, rentals, where to buy them, how to buy them, the whole shebang. So definitely check that out. You can go to alareiaworkshop.com. It's ALAREIA, alareiaworkshop.com. So here we go. We're going to get into today's guest via Skype, Mr. John Martinez. How's it going today, John?
Man, it's good. It's a good day. How are you doing?
Good, man. I get a little, like, when I bring on like people that I haven't spoken to, we've never had a conversation ever outside of today. So I get a little flustered. Very excited to have you. I'm usually like really smooth on this thing. I was like, man, wow, I'm just kind of messing that up. But we don't edit things around here. We just go straight at it. So good. John has REI Sales Academy. John is one of the leading experts, if not the leading expert in the real estate field for teaching real estate investors throughout the entire country how to be better at sales, how to go on appointments, what to say to sellers, and how to get those deals. And John, I got to tell you, man, I've seen so many people that I know that we know kind of have common relationships with that have gone through your sales training and have just absolutely 10x their business. I just want to start there. What is it about this training that is just making it blow up?
I wish I could say it was something special, but it's really common sense stuff. We focus on a couple of things in our training. We focus on why deals get done and what gets in the way. And we focus on those two core things. A lot of people in real estate talk about motivation, and we go a lot deeper into motivation. I think most real estate investors are looking for people who are already motivated, not realizing the power they have, the tool they have to increase motivation, increase a sense of urgency to take action. And I'm not saying like implant that, like put something there that's not already there, but how to ask the right questions, have the right conversation, and take people who are not bringing that insane motivation to the table and kind of get them to that same level of motivation. So that's how to increase motivation and urgency. And then what we do is the second piece we concentrate on in our sales training is really, hey, once you have a motivated prospect, once they want to take action, I don't care how bad anybody wants anything, there's always stuff that gets in the way, right? Like, I don't care where you live, you probably want a nicer place, however nice it is. I don't care what you drive, you probably want something nicer or bigger or just different because you're tired of it. But no matter how bad we want things, there's some things that get in the way. It's the same in real estate, right? So we concentrate on increasing motivation and taking all the obstacles out of the way. And then the third piece we concentrate on that really makes the training effective is after you need to do those two things, what kind of gets in the way of that open, honest conversation, right? Why don't people just open up to salespeople? Why don't people just answer the questions? Why are they sometimes standoffish? Why do they push back? Why are they sometimes hostile or don't even want to meet with you or talk to you? And we concentrated on the communication. How do we kind of set up this really open and honest conversation as if it was family member to family member or friend to friend? We dive into those two things. So that I think that's what makes it effective.
So, man, John, you just gave a lot of tremendous teasers for us. And so I want to dive into a lot of what you just said. Just took a ton of notes. But first, so now I'm going to kind of tease my audience. But before we do all that, John, tell me about you. Tell me about you.
Yeah.
How did you even get into this stuff, man?
Yeah, by complete accident. I've been in sales my whole life. My teens, my first job was telemarketing, and then kind of worked my way up through the ranks. In my late teens, early 20s, got into all commission insurance sales, traveled 5 states, slept in my car at night, that type of thing, like just really hustling for all commission. Worked my way up through sales management and recruiting, a couple of positions, sales and marketing directors for larger corporate types of entities. And that was about like a 20-year run from that telemarketing gig to running large sales organizations. But how I got into real estate was just, the first part was just like natural progression, with training being a huge part of that, just being in that industry for so long. Real estate was a complete accident. I was working with a lead generation company that generated leads for, it was their name was Z-Buyer, right?
Right.
So some people are probably familiar with them.
I use them.
Yeah. So they distribute leads. They find motivated sellers for agents and investors. And they were kind of flatlining. Called me in and said, "Hey, can you work with our team, rewrite scripts?" And I did that kind of stuff, not knowing anything about real estate or wholesaling and flipping, all that stuff. I had no idea. I saw the billboards. That was about it.
Right.
And they called an investor in Houston, Texas. And the guy's been getting calls from the company forever. And he said, "Hey, hold on. Something's changed. I like it. What's going on?" He signed up for the leads. And then he said, "What changed out there?" And they said, "Oh, this guy's working with us." And so he got a hold of me. He connected to the sales manager who I placed for the company. And the sales manager put him in contact with me. And we started to talk about his business. And he said, "Hey, will you, come on down to Houston and work with my team?" He's a wholesaler. Did 5-10 properties a month, maybe a few more, give or take. And he said, "But, I'm having trouble scaling. I'm having trouble. I can do it, but I don't want to do it all day, every day anymore. I'm hiring some salespeople. I just can't get them moving." So I said, "I'll give it a shot. I know nothing about your business." Started working with him, had some success. He was a member of a large mastermind group, a really high-end mastermind group in the industry. And you know how this stuff spreads. So then fast forward about 90 to 120 days, I'm working with 30 or 40 high-level investors out of nowhere, right? From not knowing anything about the business. 4 months later, I ended up having to fire my local clients because the industry started taking over my business. Now fast forward another 3 or 4 years, that's all I've been doing. 100% focused in on REI, all of our training, all of our scripting, the words we use, the people we work with. So that's kind of how I got dragged into it. Again, it was completely accidental. Never planned it.
Yeah, no, I think I hear a lot of people talking about their stories about real estate, and it is, I'm kind of, a product of it kind of happened by accident. But did you ever actually invest in real estate or do any of the real estate stuff? Tell us about that.
Yeah, but it came after. So after we got into the industry and I started training, what I wanted to do was provide sales calls for some of our training. Like, here's how it's done. Mm-hmm. Everything I've ever done my whole life, I did it before I trained on it. But this industry was, even though I knew sales and I never bought a house, right? I never was in there, in the thick of it.
For sure.
So the first thing I started doing is I said to my customers, "Hey, here's the deal. I want to fly out for a day. I'll work with your team. I want to hop in the car and just go buy some freaking houses." So we did it. I'd flow out to San Diego, to Houston, to Dallas, to Pennsylvania. I can't remember where in Pennsylvania, but all over Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, all over the country. And I spent probably 6 months just buying houses and recording those sales calls. So I'd go with the salespeople. They'd hop in the car. I'd use everything we teach, and we'd lock down houses at deep discounts. I did that for a while, and then I said, "You know what? Why don't I just do the same thing where I live?" So we put some marketing. I partnered with an investor I worked with. Yeah. I said, "You do the marketing. I don't want to mess with it. I'll go run the appointments, record the sales calls, lock down the contract. Your dispositions team hands it off." So then we did that for about 3 or 4 months. It was fun. We locked down houses, and I really feel like at that point I had mastered the process. Right? I mean, it was very simple at that point, I guess, is the easiest way to put it. so then we backed out of wholesaling at that point. It was fun. It's not my core business. It's not what I'm passionate about, sales and sales training. So yeah, we got into investing afterwards, more of a proof of concept, just to go, hey, not only will I tell you how to do it, I'll go do it. And then you can hear how it all rolls out on tape and how we actually put the stuff into play.
Did you feel like, John, that you had to do that, though? You had to kind of the proof of concept. You had to actually be boots on the ground and do that to absolutely just sell this thing. Hey, look, I did it myself.
No, I think I had to do it for me. So at that point, when we started doing that, we had already probably worked with 100, 150 investors, and they were spreading the word. It was, hey, this stuff's legit. It works. Here are our results and kind of that type of stuff. At that point in time, it's just, I think it was more of it was an internal thing for me that I didn't feel right teaching, even knowing it works. I didn't feel right without doing it. Because again, I spent the last 20 years doing before teaching. So it was something I had to do for me.
Sure.
So it was more about that.
John, when did you feel like you knew you really had something here with this?
Yeah, with the real estate?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's, that first few months, I knew I had something that first few months because it came after me, right? It just, I had no control over it. I had so many people coming to me for help. I helped a few people. It worked. They told people, and I had great clients, great corporate entities with some really good success stories that I really enjoyed working with. And when I had to let them go and say, I can't work with you anymore, I'm 100% in real estate. That's probably, I guess, if I had a pinpoint of time when I knew, because I got into this by accident, and I've really never had to sell it or push it or market it. We've been put in the position where it's really about deciding who are the best people to work with. And I don't mean that like I think it sounds kind of bad. It comes off weird, but we know we like to provide results. And we know when we work with certain types of investors, we get results, right? So we only work with people who are established, already doing deals, their marketing's flowing, right? If your marketing's not flowing, sales training is not going to help you. So we do stuff like that. People who take responsibility, take control of their own situation, don't make excuses, jump all into getting very uncomfortable learning something new. That's who we're able to kind of whittle down to the people we want to work with.
For sure. And
I think that helps with our marketing in a few ways. Number one, those people get results and they tell their friends, right?
Totally.
And I guess that's really just it. They get results. When we work with those people, they're going to get results. People are going to say, what happened? What you do? They point them back our way. So that's kind of been the position we've been in, is more business coming at us than what we can handle.
Totally.
We've been able to be choosy, which makes our results even better. And that's, I guess, when we knew, is when we just realized we've got more business than we can handle, and we can start kind of thinning it out.
Totally. And this business, as you know, it's such a obviously you do this nationwide, but this is a kind of a really niche business, and it's not. Word travels quick. Let me just say it that way. Word travels very quickly amongst this community, and I know there are a lot of different mastermind groups out there that you've been a part of and that you're a leader of, and that, so you just understand that this community is a lot smaller than it seems like, and just even like one person in one market can help it spread to that market, it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And it's just, and I know some people here in Birmingham that have done your sales training and just absolutely swear by it. They think it's just the absolute most amazing thing that they've ever done. So are you ready? You ready to dig into this? You ready to talk about some?
Let's do it. Let's dig in.
I want to talk about some actual specific stuff that, you gave a ton of teasers in the beginning. I want to dig into them individually. Is that cool if we do that?
Yeah, that's cool. Cool.
All right, man. So sales training, you said you want to dig into why deals get done and what gets in the way.
Yeah.
So why do deals get done?
Yeah, it does come down to motivation, but the way I look at motivation is probably a little different than a lot of people look at motivation. I think when you're average, when I start working with an investor and we talk about motivation, they usually talk about things like distress and things like that. And that is a motivation, right? Getting out of a bad situation. I look at motivation a little differently. I think the way I define motivation is the distance between where someone is and where they want to be. So oftentimes, if they're in a distressed situation, yeah, they want to be somewhere else. But there's many other places in life where we can, let me give you an example. You probably lived in a few different places, right? You grew up in a home, you probably had an apartment or something in a couple places as you were moving on, and then whatever house you live in today, right?
Sure.
So when I think about my life, I think about every time I moved into a new place. I remember the first apartment I ever got. Looking back, it was tiny, it was run down. But when I moved into that apartment, right, there was a distance between where I wanted and where I wanted to be. I was living at home. I didn't have the freedom I wanted. I wanted to be my own person, have my own space, that freedom, that control, that type of stuff. So there's a distance between where I was and where I wanted to be. That motivation made me work. Made me go out there, make the money, and spend the money on something I didn't have to, right? I could have stayed at home for a while longer. And when I moved into that place, and I finally got it, and you get the keys and you walk in, I was 100% satisfied, right? So follow kind of along with me. Have you ever been there, right? You want a new place, you want it, you finally get it, and for a moment you get there and you're like, bang, 100%, I want nothing else, I'm completely satisfied, right? At that point in time, there's no distance between where you are and where you want to be. Fast forward 1 or 2 years, you go to that buddy's apartment, or maybe your buddy is now out of college, first job, gets a real house. You walk into that place, and 5 minutes before walking in, you were still happy with that apartment you have. You walk into it and you see that house and you imagine, I can have something like this. Instant motivation, because now there's a big distance between where you are and where you want to be.
Totally.
So motivation doesn't, in that spot, you might not have been in a rough spot, like I'm in a highly distressed situation. But the second you realize I can have something different and there's a distance between where I am today and where I want to be, that's where motivation lives. And I think most investors go into a deal looking for high distress, just thinking if this person's highly distressed, they know where they can be or how to move towards it. That's not always the case, and they want to get there. If you have that mindset, the best you're going to do is only close the deals where there is a lot of motivation. They already know they can get out of the situation. They know what that looks like and feels like, and they do all the motivating and work themselves, and you just happen to swoop in and help them get there. The best investors, the ones who close the highly motivated deals, the tire kickers, and everyone in between, they know how to get in there and have the right conversation about where exactly are you right now. Yeah, I know bills are tough, but what's that mean?
Yeah.
How does that impact your life? How does that impact you spiritually, financially, what you do with your time, what you're thinking about,
Totally.
what you're worried about? Is it keeping you from doing anything? And then what does that feel like? And they get that prospect, the home seller, to come to grips, to realize often for the first time, here's exactly where I am and what it feels like. That's the beginning of motivation. And then they move the conversation to...
Well, before you move the conversation. Yeah. So that is great, and I love everything you said. I'm following along with your analogy. Give us an actionable word, phrase to say. What do we say to get that? Yeah, absolutely. So let me give you the trick. This is what I do every time in a ton of different industries. So here's the trick. Here's the key phrase. I mean, this is money. This is it. So whenever people ask about motivation, people are usually reluctant to say what their real motivation is. So I've kind of got a 2-step question. Step number 1 is you want to compliment their situation, their property. You want to say something positive. And I know we're in some tough situations, but there's always something positive to say. Hey, great neighborhood. Hey, you lived here for 20 years. Hey, you've done a lot of work to the place. You have to say, pluck something good out, right? Great property, love the layout, love the neighborhood, great school district, whatever it is. And then with disbelief, you ask them, why in the world are you even considering selling this place? That's the first step to getting into motivation. That will get you into the doorway to have the right conversation. 100%.
So number 1, hey, compliment, great property. Hey, I know it's not where you want it to be yet, but it's getting there. You've done a lot of work. Hey, I know you're kind of tired of the rental game, tired of being a landlord, but it's bringing in positive cash flow every month. Why in the world would you even consider getting rid of it? And whatever they say next is a doorway to their motivation.
Totally.
So is that good and actionable?
No, I love it. I've heard you say that in the past, and I use that. I love it because people are so guarded with what the actual reason is. Because I think most of us ask that question, why are you selling, or what, try to get that motivation. But you don't get the real motivation until you ask a question like that, because it's almost like you're pulling it away from them, right? It's almost like you're taking it away from them. They're going to pull, you're going to retreat, so they're going to move towards you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because if you think about it just at a human level, and I don't even want you to think about sellers right now of homes. Just think about yourself. Like when you go to buy something, and think about high pressure sales situations, cars, timeshares, like all that kind of stuff. When you go into a high pressure sales situation, what's going through your head? I mean, I'll just ask you that. If you know you're walking into a high pressure sales situation, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm thinking no. I'm thinking no, get away from me. I'm just here to look. I'm just here to browse.
I don't want to be pressured. I don't want to make a bad decision. I'm going to not say anything. You can hold it against me. I'm going to probably give you excuses at the beginning, like I'm not making a decision a day to try to protect myself from being hounded. I'm going to give myself a way to get all those things. So that's usually what keeps people from opening up. So when you kind of go in there and take the opposite approach, instead of, oh, I see why you want to sell, this is probably a real pain in the butt for you, isn't it? You go the opposite way and go, I don't get it. The place is making you money every month. Yeah, it can be a little bit of a pain in the butt to upkeep, but you're making money. Why in the world are you even thinking about selling it?
It's gold.
So whatever comes out of their mouth next, now you're getting into motivation.
Totally.
Then you got to test it.
Okay, all right. Let's go. Let's test it. What? You asked the question for me. That's actually where I was going.
Yeah. So sometimes you get the real deal right out of the gate. Sometimes you don't. Right? People again are guarded.
Yeah. And
there's different things you're going to do to help them help relieve them of that guard, but then you want to test it. Is this the real deal? When I say test it, what I mean is when you get into motivation, you got to figure out, is this the one or two or three things that are compelling enough for them to actually take an action, right? So sometimes people just tell us, hey, here's an example. A house I bought in Springfield where I live. Walk in the door, I ask the right question. Hey, I don't get it. Why are you selling? Well, it's the upkeep. Okay, the upkeep. That's possible motivation, but I didn't know, so I had to test it. So the follow-up question, super simple. Any type of question that gets them to expand on it. So upkeep, what do you mean? Well, the gutters and the yard, and I'm getting older, and all that type of stuff. Is that a big deal or is that a little deal? Well, I don't know. It's kind of a little deal. Well, how much time do you spend? Well, actually, not a whole lot of time. Well, what if you got a different house and you had to do that there? Well, I guess that's not really a big deal. That's how I started testing the motivation, and I realized there's no impact. It's not a big deal. That's just it must have been what she thought I wanted to hear, or just was the first thing that popped into her head. So I realized this is not compelling enough for this person to take action. Now, an amateur salespeople, or maybe someone just starting in the business who doesn't have like a real structured way to go through these conversations, they probably just say upkeep. And they might even craft their whole conversation about getting them out of the upkeep. But you know what? It's not going to get them across the finish line.
Because you were testing it and it wasn't the real thing.
It wasn't impacting their life in any way, right? It was, at the end of the day, it wasn't a big deal. It's just what came to their mind. So we had to go back and go, well, I guess that sounds like it's not that big of a deal. Is there any other reason you'd even consider selling? And I had to go through that 2 or 3 times until I got to, well, if I got into somewhere cheaper, okay, common distress point, but I had to find out, is that personal impact? So then it comes down to, well, why is that important? Well, my daughter was in a wreck. I had cancer last year. All these bills are piling up. Well, I get it. I mean, we all have bills that pile up. I mean, is that a big deal? Well, yeah, it is a big deal. I'm still going into impact. Well, why? Well, now I'm working extra hours. My car broke down. I can't fix it. I got to find a second job or a different job, and I've been trying and it's not getting anywhere. I'm falling behind on bills. I can't help out with my kids. Well, how does that feel? I feel like I'm failing. Then I knew I'm into personal impact. Now this pain point is really a compelling reason to take action. And that's where we take the conversation. And the longer you stay in that conversation, the more emotional your prospect gets, because they're faced with it, right? When you're faced with something like that, and you kind of live in there, then you're like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore. That's how you start increasing motivation and the urgency to take action. And there's all kinds of science behind that, how the brain works and things like that with neuroscience and neuroeconomics and behavioral economics and all that crazy stuff. But that's how you increase motivation and the urgency to take action.
That is awesome stuff, John. I feel like I'm getting a personal one-on-one sales session with John and myself. This is incredible. And
I love it, man. I get nerdy with the stuff. I mean, I love it.
But here's the thing: when we bring on guests like yourself who do love it that much, and you get excited and passionate about it, it obviously it helps everybody who's listening. And I know that you're all about. Before we keep digging in, let me just interject with this question: why? Because I listened to you on Alex Pardo's show, kind of a mutual friend of ours. That's been months ago now. But just absolutely, I couldn't believe how much stuff you were giving away. With the script, even like all the stuff that you did. It's like, just talk about that for a second. Why do you do that? Why do you give away so much for free?
It's a selfish answer, man. Because the stuff works. And then when people do it, they want more of it. Yep. And they sign up for our training.
That's right.
I mean, I wish I was wishing I had a really altruistic type of answer for you. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it sounds altruistic to start. The more you give, the more you get. I 100% believe that. But here's the deal. At the end of the day, it's a business. And I know the more I give, people are going to use it. It's going to work, and they're going to come back for more. It's just like a restaurant serves really good food and gives really good service because people come back for more. Yep. So as much as I want to be it's 100% altruistic, it wins business.
It wins business, and that's, no offense to anybody listening to this, but that's why we do the podcast, right? That's why we bring on amazing guests. It's going to lead to more business, and I would encourage anyone that is listening to this, have that mentality. Have that giving mentality, because it's the law of reciprocation, right? It will come back to you somehow, some way. That's awesome. That's actually the answer I was looking for. That's what I thought you were going to say. That's awesome stuff. All right, let's keep digging into this, because I feel like there's more stuff here. You're talking about motivations, obviously the really big key here. Increased motivation and urgency. Does that just go back to what you were talking about a second ago with the impact, making the personal impact? Okay, awesome.
Absolutely.
Taking obstacles out of the way. Yeah. What is that?
Yeah. So again, no matter how bad you want, if you think about whatever you want most in your life right now, whatever it is for anybody, it could be a material possession, could be a relationship, it could be a skill set, whatever it is, there's a reason you don't have it right now, right? Now I'm talking about whatever it is you want most in the world right now, there's something standing in the way. So I say that only to say this. No matter how high you get those motivation levels, it's not enough. There's going to be reasons why people can't move forward. But the deal is we have a lot more control over helping out with those things as most people think. So what usually keeps people from moving forward is some type of fear. A fear of leaving money on the table, not knowing whether or not they're making the best decision or how to make the decision. It could be a fear of a relationship, right? Is someone going to get upset? Is my sister Jody, the realtor, going to get upset if I don't list with her? Are the kids going to get upset with me if I don't leave the property to them? Do I have tenants in there and I don't want to rock the boat? So relationships are a big fear. Leaving money on the table is probably one of the biggest fears I see in the industry. If we'll just think about it on the most simplistic terms. If you're about to do a deal with somebody, you're selling your house, and you're confident or unsure if you could get more money somewhere else, are you more likely to take action or to hold on?
Hold on,
right? So the fear of losing or leaving money on the table, there's all kinds of fears that get in the way. So great salespeople actually, they proactively draw all that stuff out and help the prospect deal with them. Here's a cool thing about that. The better you do on the motivation piece of a sales call, the easier it is to get back to all those objections. I'll give you a quick example, right? Like, listen, I've never done this before, or let's use a relationship. So, hey, listen, My sister's a realtor. She's been killing me to sell this house through her for 2 years. I mean, I don't know. She's telling me just to do that way. I mean, I don't know what to do, so I probably need to talk to her again. The more we ramped up motivation, then it's a simple conversation. Hey, listen, I get it. That's important to you. I've got no good answer for you, but I do have a question, and I can't answer this question for you. I can't help you with this question, but here's a question. You just told me about where you're at and pain. And because of that, you feel like this. But if you don't sell your house and you decide to go a different way, that may not be taken care of. But if you do decide to list with your sister, it's a different pain, right? She's going to be upset with you. So the question is, hey, do you want this just off your back, not have to fix it, not have to come up with 20 or 30K to do the repairs, not have to worry about 6 months of open houses and all that stuff you said you didn't want to go through? Would you rather avoid that, or would you rather avoid a tough conversation with your sister? Either way, it's not going to be fun for you. So the question I have for you is this. What problem is more important for you to solve today? Is it avoiding that conversation with your sister? And that might be the answer. And if it is, that's okay. I've got family too. I know how that is. Or is it solving the problem of the bang, 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 bang we just talked about? So you see, the more you dive into the motivation and urgency first, the easier it is to actually get your prospects to override all their own objections.
Totally.
And then beyond that, there's all kinds of objections they have that you can usually solve, right? I don't know how many deals I've seen where it's, I've gone in, I've called some follow. So one thing we do is sometimes when we do our training, we'll hop on the phone with prospects that stalled out, where the investor said, I know there's something there. We got right to the finish line and it stalled out. And we'll call them up and we'll say, we'll pull it out of them, right? More times than not, it's something simple that was super simple for an investor to solve, but the investor just didn't proactively go after it. Like, oh, well, you know what? I didn't know exactly when I'd find a place, and I was afraid if I sold it too quick, you said you'd close in 7 to 14 days, I wouldn't have a place to go, and that stopped me. It's like, oh my gosh, we can easily solve that, right? We're so flexible. So there's objections that the higher the pain you increase, they'll get over that own objection, or sometimes just bringing it to the surface, you have an easy solution for it. So we proactively draw all those out. We'll ask questions like, hey, listen, I'm not your only option. So here's a great one to ask. I know you like the actionable item, so this is an actionable way to draw out some of the most common objections. Hey, listen, I'm not your only option here, and I'm not yet even sure if I'm your best option. Have you thought about listing it? Have you thought about just keeping it? Could you keep it for another 2 or 3 years? Have you ever considered just renting it out, right? Those are all the objections that commonly get in the way. Hey, listen, if you don't bring up listing it or keeping it, do you think that they don't know that's an option, right? That's an option. But what it'll allow you to do is pull those things out and look for well, yeah, I was thinking about that. Well, okay, now let's walk through those things. So what we do is after we get that motivation where it needs to be, we proactively ask those types of questions, and we pull out everything that could potentially get in the way of the deal. That fear of leaving money on the table, the relationship, time, risk, discomfort, all those things, and we walk through them one by one. And we deal with everyone that we can deal with, and the ones we can't deal with, we deal with when we do our presentation.
No, those are some phenomenal tips, especially like when you're talking about kind of negotiating. I think there's a book that we're all like really familiar with now, at least my audience is, which is Never Split the Difference.
Yeah.
But you've kind of alluded to kind of some stuff that he does. If you already talk about the potential objections before they can object to them, you're just they don't have anything to say, or at least you've already drawn that out. There's nothing that they can object to, right? Right.
And it's important to do it early, right? Mm-hmm. I think, most people have the mindset of I'll deal with it if it comes up. But when does it come up? It only comes up if it comes up after you try to close them, and then you're like, all right, what's holding them back, right? But think about this. If you give your offer, they say no, conversation's over. It's rare that you get that conversation at that point of, well, hold on, I gave you an offer, you said no. Can we talk 30 more minutes about why you said no? Usually it's done, right? People, they got what they wanted. What people want from you is your offer. Right? When you give up that offer, it's usually too late to have the right conversation. Right. So It's really important to do that stuff on the front end.
Totally.
Don't don't lose the deal and then go, how do I recover? Because at that point, it's usually too late.
So, John, that leads me to kind of the question I really wanted to ask you that I had written down is, how do we go about, what do we say, the actionable stuff, how do we go about making the actual offer? Like you're talking about an offer that's sometimes, 40, 50% of what the value of the property is, right?
Right.
So what is, assume that you trained the most, you trained me up to be the most incredible salesperson. I go out there, I did everything you told me to do. Now it's time to present the offer. How do I present it? What do I say?
It's much easier than you think. I don't know how many offers I've made, and okay, I'm going to tell you how I made the offers, how I came up with my numbers. Do not take this advice because I'm not a real estate investor. This is the worst advice in the world, but I'm going to tell you how I did it just to kind of tell you how it went down. So what I would always do is before I go out to a property, I'd look at Zillow and I'd offer 40 to 50%. And if it was in really rough shape, I'd start shaving off dollars. So that's how I made my offers. So my offers were always at a maximum. I mean, pristine house, 50% of Zillow, right? So my offers are always low. That being said, I have never had one person ever get upset at my offer. And I'll tell you exactly how that was. Let me ask you this, Brian. When you make an offer and you know someone's expecting a certain amount and you know you're coming in at 40 or 50%, what's that feel like to you? Like you're getting ready to make the offer. It's going through your head. Now's the time. What's that feel like?
Yeah, I think obviously in the beginning when you're a beginner, it's really hard. It's nearly impossible. Yeah. Now today for me, it's not really. I don't really feel anything. Okay. I feel empathy towards the other person when I say it. Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to give them news that it's not going to make their day, right? You're not going to give them an offer 99 times out of 100 that they're like, dang, you nailed it. That was much more than I thought. Let's do this, right? In most cases, you're going to rain on their parade. And whenever you're about to rain on someone's parade, it doesn't feel good. What the best investors do is they don't hide it. And that gets into empathy. They show the empathy. I think a lot of investors are so worried about, I need to be 100% business, all business, confident in my offer, that they, I throw it out there with zero disregard for anything, and it's for them to deal with. When you do that, you're upsetting them, and you're going to start to get all kinds of pushback, and you're going to start to get all kinds of reasons why the offer doesn't make sense. I, again, go the opposite way. We use what's called tactical empathy. So when I make an offer, I'll show you. It sounds exactly like this. Listen, I know where you are. I know what you want to get out of this place. I'm trying to figure out how I can give you what you're asking for the property, without me kind of losing my tail end on it. I don't think I can get there. I want to help you in a really big way, but I feel horrible because I know I can't give you what I know. There's no possible way I could give you what you're asking for it, and I feel horrible. I'm not even sure if I should give you the offer. What I do is I feel bad about it. They start to console me, and I make them pull it out of me. And when they ask, I give them the offer, and I tell them that they'll never accept it. Again, this is staying. It's using what's called psychological reactance. Whenever you push somebody some way, they push the opposite way. Mm-hmm. So I never push someone into a deal. I'm always taking the deal away. So then I go, I'd probably be around 50 grand, and I know there's no way you would ever even consider that. And then I just shut up. And what usually happens like clockwork after that is, number one, they console me because I feel so bad about it. What do you do if you opened your door and there was a wounded puppy sitting there? Do you kick it off, or do you go, oh my gosh, come here, right? They console me. They go, no, it's okay. They start to justify my offer. They go, it's okay. It's not your fault. You can only pay what you can pay, and I know it needs some work. And they start to justify their offer while consoling me. And I've already told them no. So now I'm setting myself up for a great negotiating position because I've just relieved all sales pressure. I just said, Number one, you'll never take that deal. Now all sales pressure relieved. They don't feel like, all right, now they're going to really try to get me, right? So I've relieved it so we can continue to have open and honest conversation. And as I pull away, they start to pull the other way and go, it's not where I want to be, but I've got to do something. Mm-hmm. And then I love to follow it up with something like, well, listen, now that it's over, what do you think you're going to do? Mm-hmm. And we dive right back into, I don't know, I got to do something. I get pain levels right back up. And then we're actually into the negotiation at that point. And we do a give and take, and we go through a negotiation process. But that's how I lay the initial offer. It always has to be lower than your last offer. We call it price anchoring. It's just another negotiating tactic. Yep. But that's how we lead into it. And I'll tell you, with absolute certainty, 100% confidence, I have done it that way every time, and I've never upset a single person.
That's gold, man. That's absolutely gold. It's unbelievable information, guys. Practical, actionable steps and things that you can say from Mr. John Martinez. John, I want to ask you this too. Thank you for sharing all that.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize that we are kind of in sales. Just talk about that. Just talk about that in general, because you talk about sales training. It's like we don't have anything to sell. We have ourselves to sell. We have our low offer to sell, but we don't have a product we're trying to sell, maybe a service that we're selling. We are in sales, and I say that all along. Why do you say that? Yeah,
well, anytime you want to influence someone to take an action, it's selling, right? That's it. And if you're trying to buy a house, you're trying to influence someone to sell it. Totally. If you buy that house and now you need to get rid of it, you're trying to influence, someone to buy, a flipper to buy it from you, or another investor to buy it from you, or an end user to buy it from you. Right? You're always trying to influence someone to take some type of action, right? Hey, I don't have a house. I'd like to have a house. Would you sell me yours? That's sales. You can call it whatever you want, totally. Right? But that's what it is. And all the way through that process, whether you are bringing employees on board because you're scaling up, whether you're buying or selling properties, whether you're always trying to get what you want all day, every day. It's sales. But I know sales is a kind of a dirty word.
Yeah,
but
that's why, yeah.
It's communication, though. It's really what we teach isn't even sales. It's communication.
Totally.
And the communication is this. Hey, you've got an issue. I've got an issue. You both have problems, right? I'm in the house buying business. I need to buy more houses. That's my problem. I'm hoping you can help me with it. You've got a house to sell. I'm hoping I can help you with it. Is it okay if we have just a really clear, open, honest conversation about what we both want out of this thing? And if it turns out we can help each other, maybe we'll decide to move forward. If we have that conversation, it's, hey, one of us are falling short, we can't help each other, at least we gave it a shot. We can both move on, right? That's sales.
Awesome way to put it, man. That's an absolutely awesome way to put it. John, thank you so much. How can people, so I am subscribed to John's newsletter, and he sends out some fantastic sales tips for absolutely free. How can people sign up for your newsletter? And also, John, how can people learn more about what you've got going on with your boot camps and such?
Yeah. So we've got just everything on the website. If you go to our website, there's a newsletter, there's free videos and stuff like that. If you give your email address, it puts you into our email campaign. We'll point you towards more videos. I mean, we try to do as much free stuff as possible. So everything we put out there is something that's actionable. Either it's a motivation thing, or it's a tactic, a technique, a training video. But we've got tons of free stuff there. So if you opt into our free videos or anywhere else on our website, you'll get that stuff. It'll come to you. We've also got a YouTube channel, Midwest Revenue Group. If you go to the YouTube channel, there's probably 40 or 50 free training videos. Then on the website, of course, you can find all the information about different paid trainings we have.
Right, and the website is MidwestRev.com.
Yeah, Midwest REV, Rev as in revenue, MidwestRev.com.
That's awesome, man. John, is there anything before we go? Is there anything I missed? Is there anything that was like, Brian, you had me on and you forgot to ask me about this? Is there anything I missed when it comes to sales training, or anything you would like to add?
Yeah, I mean, sales training specifically, but I think business growth in general. Anything you get better at, whether it's investing, whether it's sales and acquisitions, it's an absolute 100% non-negotiable requirement that you get uncomfortable. And when I see some people that don't progress as well as others, it's because they're always looking to find the comfort before they do something new. But here's the deal. You never get comfortable until you do something new, and you do it so many times that it becomes comfortable. So whether it's investing, it's you just got to take action. You got to take that next step, knowing that in order to grow, it's going to be uncomfortable every single step of the way. And it applies to sales training, but it applies to everything. I'm guessing if you're watching this podcast, it's because I want to be better at something. And I'm telling you right now, the first step to that is realizing, all right, this journey is going to be uncomfortable. So I guess that's the biggest thing I'd want to throw out there.
Totally. It's awesome. Thank you so much, John. I appreciate it. Go check out MidwestRev.com to see when John's upcoming boot camps are, and get signed up, guys. I mean, I'm talking. I don't get a dime for saying this, and it's awesome stuff. And John, I haven't even been to one. So I gotta get to one, and which I'm going to do 100%. Just don't know when. Got to make sure the schedule's aligned. But thank you, John. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, and we say it every time, guys. Hit that subscribe button, rate us, review us. We love you guys so much. We'll see you next time.